Miss Nancy Guthrie, the mother of Savannah Guthrie. And basically, I'm going to talk about exactly how they got this DoorDash driver. There's a lot of details that are not being released, kind of sort of in some places, but also how they got him. And it was the Bitcoin account that led to his arrest specifically. Now that's not been confirmed, just so you know, disclaimer, it's not been confirmed by FBI or by the sheriff department, because they're just not going to share the information. So the whole Bitcoin account, that ransom note, the media, there was like 3 media outlets that got an email from the kidnappers, and their demand was they had to pay $4 million in Bitcoin, and then they said, we're not going to communicate with you anymore. So they shut the door on any kind of like trying to negotiate with them. And so, you know, the FBI was involved, and so it took them several days, I think 9 days to be exact, to be able to extract these cameras and get footage of, you know, the people. But the bottom line is, it's not a family member. And so I'm going to go into the details of how they did this and how they got them. So this is how it went down. It was a tactical traffic stop. It's not like somebody just happened to pull over somebody and, ooh, wow, you know, I think, you know, you might be somebody we're looking for. It was, they had tracked this person. They set a trap for him. And this is how they did it. So there was this receipt of the note on February 3rd. TMZ, which is the one that reported recently this evening, there was activity on the Bitcoin account, and that's how they got them. But here's what is believed, but of course, you know, the feds and all them are not really giving the information, but this is what they believe, that the investigators dropped a payment in the wallet because they can monitor if anybody checks their wallet to see, you know, because like, for example, they would get a notification that somebody dropped money in their wallet, and lo and behold, they took the bait and they looked into their wallet, and that pinged them, and they found who it was that was looking into the wallet. That's what's being speculated on how they caught them. So they have this blockchain monitoring because Bitcoin transactions are recorded on a public transparent ledger, right? And so anyone with a wallet can monitor it for activity. Hang on just a sec. So they have that specific blockchain or whatever, and so they did that on February 10th, and within 25 minutes they made the arrest. 25 minutes of that activity, for the first time, they had him within 25 minutes. So this is an independent verification. TMZ stated that they verified the Bitcoin address was real before reporting its contents. So 2 other Tucson area televisions, Cold News 13 and K-Gun, also received similar notes. So they've been following that digitally, right? So anyways, they are of course refusing to verify. So there was like a $300 deposit, okay? So that's how they got it. So how the 300 figure became public was Harvey Levin went on CNN and News Nation to report that the movement had occurred. So he declined to disclose the amount, said there was reasons he couldn't, da-da-da-da. So basically the Tucson station K9 also received a copy of the ransom note and wallet address, and confirmed on Twitter that the activity was a deposit of less than $300. So because the original ransom demand was for $6 million, actually I think it was $4 million, but anyways, the small $300 transaction is interpreted by experts and media as the test transaction, or the minimal deposit made by the investigators so that they can track the monitoring, right? So there wasn't like any off-ramp of the money or anything like that. Just by them checking that, probably responded to a notification that, you know, there'd been activity in their Bitcoin, right? So they have not commented on that, right? All right, so the original demand was $4 million in Bitcoin, and then you had these deadlines that didn't get met or whatever. So they had to like verify that these people sending these emails were all the same people, but they were also waiting on that residual data in this camera that they got physical possession of, and that actually took several days. So I think the family wasn't paying out the money because they were, probably being told by FBI that, like, look, if you pay that money, she's going to be dead. But if you give us some time, buy time, right? And that'll give us the time to track this person and get him. So they've got the bomb squad currently, right now, as we speak. They have the bomb squad, the rescue mission. It's like a bomb squad, SWAT team, and it's basically a rescue team are actively going into this house after they arrested this. He's a DoorDash driver. So as soon as they had that activity in the Bitcoin, then they figured out how to track the person. So the mother-in-law of the DoorDash driver is like, oh, he has nothing to do with it, da 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 da, whatever. But they immediately got the search warrants for the home that was connected with that Bitcoin, or the rest, basically. So once they got the guy in custody, which they have not released the name, but they have a guy in custody, they have confirmed the Pima County Sheriff Department has confirmed it is not a family member. So anyways, this person's down in Rio Rico as a DoorDash driver, and I don't know if that's where they live, but they said that they were going to go into their home. But why they're sending the bomb squad out, of course they're not going to tell anybody that, but it said, this was just within the hour, that the Pima County Sheriff Department bomb squad and the command posts were deployed, right? And earlier on Fox, they said that they were sending out an elite, basically an elite rescue squad. So I don't know if they're just treating it like they could be potential terrorists. I don't know, depending on who they are. I mean, they could be terrorists, right? That's involved in this. I don't know, right? But anyways, so here's the whole thing about why they thought that they could get by with using Bitcoin. Like, so people think, why would they choose Bitcoin as a ransom and you send it to the media, right? Well, this is common, actually. It says the belief that Bitcoin is untraceable is a common misconception that criminals often exploit. In reality, Bitcoin is one of the most transparent financial systems because every transaction is permanently recorded on public immutable ledger called the blockchain. So criminals typically rely on several strategies to attempt to evade capture, but law enforcement has developed advanced tools to counter them. And boy, I mean, they got them quick. Within 25 minutes of that Bitcoin activity, they got a person in custody, right? That's why I said, no, they're going to get them. So the pseudonymity, I don't know how to say that word. Bitcoin addresses as long strings of characters. They don't inherently contain a person's name or location. So they think that the anonymous wallet is without providing any ID, right? So they have these obfuscation tactics. Advanced users try to hide the money trail by moving funds rapidly between thousands of different wallets. It's called a shell game, or using mixers, services that scramble coins from different users to hide their origin. Well, law enforcement is all ahead of that, right? So the international jurisdictions, they may try to move the funds to exchange in countries with lax regulations or know your customer KYC laws that hope the U.S. law enforcement cannot reach them. So why they often get caught? This is called the off-ramp problem. The digital currency is largely useless until it's converted into cash. So to cash out, a major exchange like Coinbase or Kraken, users have to give government-issued IDs, Social Security numbers, and bank details. So you have these blockchain forensics like FBI, IRS that use specialized tools. They call it chain analysis, or TRM labs. They map out clusters of wallets, proving they're all controlled by the same person. So once a single wallet in that cluster is linked to a real-world identity, it's over. Their entire history is exposed, right? So the breadcrumb strategy in the Nancy Guthrie case is experts noted that once a suspect provides a wallet, okay, then they're basically all controlled by the same person. So once a single wallet in that cluster is linked to a real world identity, yeah, they're exposed, right? So basically they revealed themselves. So they can just send a tiny trackable payment, which is called a test transaction, which in this case, this happened today, it was like less than 300. And so I'm just assuming that it probably sent a notification to the owner of that blockchain, and boom, as all they had to do was just look at the activity in their wallet, and it pinged them, and that gave them their identity, their location, the whole 9 yards, the digital footprints. So accessing their wallet from a home IP address or linking it to an email account was used for personal business. So basically, no, they weren't. I don't think that they were prevented from paying the ransom. I think that just usually with the FBI, they're like, look, if you pay them, then they're probably going to kill her. So they're probably like, just give us time, give us time. We're getting closer, or whatever. And there's like, we're going to get the video footage. And so it took them days just to be able to get that footage, because it was, in the residual data. It wasn't like in just like regular storage, and so that takes time for them to get it, but they got it. So, but they kept saying that we're going to pay, right? So then so here's some stuff about some medicines. So there's been a lot of confusion about the medicines, because so everybody knows that the medicines was left at her house, and that's why we're like, how is she alive? Because this is life-saving medicine that she needs to literally stay alive, right? So they're like, okay, here's what happened. Their daughter Annie took her to the pharmacy literally like the day or close to the time where she abducted, and the receipt was in her name. So all these people are trying to say, oh, well, they're trying to like blame the family and whatever. It's like, okay, well, that's her, they're not going to like leave the medicine, right, or take it with her. I felt like, okay, they could have taken some of the medicine with them, leave the pills on the counter to pressure the family to think you must pay quickly or she will die without her medicine, right? So there's no information about, well, did they count the pills? Is there some of the pills missing? Okay, because you have basically a fresh refill based on the receipt in their daughter's car. So, of course, they're not going to tell them, they're not going to tell the public, right? They don't want them to know if they know that information, basically. So, anyways, so then there was this, okay, well, there's no way to reply. The abductors made it clear. They're like, we are not going to communicate. Here's what you must do. You must do it by this time. And they're communicating with the media, okay, because they think they're, like, protected through this Bitcoin that's not trackable. But, of course, it was. All right, because they have these encrypted services. The emails that they sent to the media apparently was like encrypted or whatever. Anyways, but that's how they got them. So that's what they did. Today they sent a deposit, meaning the investigators, not the media. Okay, not to get that confused. And so what they did is they got a digital ping to see if that they would actively monitor that wallet, and they did. So at 4:34 p.m., the TMZ says, who basically was in, I don't know how they stayed in possession of the Bitcoin account or whatever, I don't know. But anyways, that's why TMZ was involved, was because they were one of the media outlets that got the ransom note. And so there was like 3 of them. But anyways, TMZ reported this activity in the Bit account today for the first time. Actually, yesterday, because it's 12:30 where I'm at. Anyway, so the Pima County Sheriff Department said that they went and got the subject, but they didn't say anything about it. They said it was a traffic stop. Well, actually, it wasn't a traffic stop. It was more than that. But, they're not widely dispersing this information. You kind of have to, piecemeal collect it. That's why I use the AI, because the AI has everything all in one place and can collect stuff that isn't really put together widely, if you will. Anyway, so what happened was there's a DoorDash driver, right? He's down in Rio Rico, and so just as soon, now again, keep in mind, it's not them saying, oh, well, this is exactly how we did it. Okay, we pinged it, we did. I'm not saying that they're saying this. I'm saying that within 25 minutes of them, this ping, they went and made this arrest. So to me, because they were able to see exactly who it was who monitored that account, the very account that was sent to the media, with the ransom request, and not only sent the media with the ransom request, because a lot of people are like, well, this could be a hoax, it could just be a scam. People are like wanting, to claim that, for money or whatever. Well, they had in the email specific information that only the kidnapper could know. For example, her Apple Watch, where it was basically connected to her pacer of her heart. She has like a heart pacer or whatever. So where that Apple Watch or whatever was specifically located, they knew. And only the person involved could know. So it was definitely eventually confirmed that, okay, whoever's sending these emails, making these ransom requests, they're the ones that took her. And so because they are the ones that pinged, I do believe that this person that they have in custody right now is involved. I truly believe that, because I personally believe that it is connected to the ping on the Bitcoin account. So they was tracking this Bitcoin wallet, right? It gave them the advantage that they could trace that flow of money, and then they can identify this activity, right? So it's like a lot of people think that this whole, Bitcoin used to be hard to trace because of all these different things that they could do, in the shuffling around of the coins or whatever. But no, law enforcement has far advanced in being able. It's super easy to trace them now. I mean, literally, TMZ reported activity occurred within 25 minutes of their broadcast, right? So if they check their wallet immediately after deposit was made, then they can correlate the specific web traffic to a physical location. So if a suspect set up a watch or alert on a crypto app for the specific address, that app provider could be subpoenaed for the user's account, info, and the GPS data. So if they identify the off-ramp refers to the point where Bitcoin is converted into cash. That's the most dangerous point for a criminal. So the KYC requirements, major exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, they know your consumer. It requires them to know your customer, right? So the KYC documentation, including government IDs. So if the suspect tried to move the 300 to an exchange to test the ability to cash it out, they would immediately flag their real world identity. But they don't even need them to try to off-ramp and cash it out. All they needed them to do was to check their account. That's literally all they needed to do, get them, right? And that's exactly what happened. So the Bitcoin versus banks, the surveillance reality, oh my gosh, public versus private ledgers, right? In a regular bank, your transaction history is private record between you and the bank. They can't see it without a subpoena, warrant, or court order. But in a Bitcoin blockchain is permanent, public. Anyone, including the FBI, can monitor it in real time. They don't need legal permission to simply look. So monitor looking activity, right? So FBI can't directly see you looking at a private wall on your own device. They can track the digital breadcrumbs left behind when you interact with the network. So for blockchain explorers, if a suspect uses a public website, like, for example, blockchain.com, to even check their balance, investigators can subpoena that site's logs to see the IP address of who was looking at that specific ransom wallet. So they have this correlated timing in this case that they likely watched for who pinged the wallet immediately after the $300 test deposit was made. So can the FBI see you log into your bank? No, FBI doesn't have a live feed on personal banking logins. There's strict legal protections in place for traditional banking. But see, it's different with Bitcoin. That's why I'm just like, oh my gosh, they try to use Bitcoin. Oh, they're so done. That's what I said earlier today. I said, they are so done. They thought that they was going to not be able to get caught. I said, they are done. They're going to get them. This guy shows up to the house and he didn't even have anything to like disable the camera with. And I'm like, they did not think anything through. I said, they're going to get them. And they got them. Before the end of the day, they got them, right? So I said, so basically this is what I said. So the Bitcoin probably has a notification that there's an activity and the criminal or the owner of the account checked its account when someone dropped money in it, and presto bingo, they got them. And then Google Gemini, I said, that's exactly what happened. In the Nancy Guthrie case, the Bitcoin account acted as a digital tripwire that let the FBI and the Sheriff Department move on down from a digital lead to a physical arrest, and boy did they move quick. So the presto bingo movement. So from February 10th, this shows how law enforcement used the suspect's own curiosity against them. So it was a digital bait, basically. So yeah, so that little deposit of 300, they waited to see who would ping the account to check the balance. So they're tracking the monitor. While the FBI hasn't released the exact technical details, which I said earlier they have not, experts are pointing out that if the suspect used a wallet app or a blockchain explorer to view the funds, they now have their IP address and their device ID could be logged. Duh. So the real-time correlation within 25 minutes of the activity being reported by the media, law enforcement matched the digital activity to the location or device. So it wasn't just a traffic stop. It was a tactical traffic stop, by the way. Okay, so they performed a tactical traffic stop in Rio Rico to a DoorDash driver. So if the suspect had a crypto app on their phone with the watch address feature enabled, they were essentially carrying a GPS tracker for the FBI. Like, oh my gosh, literally, guys, I'm telling you, I knew it when they said Bitcoin. I said it's over for them. They're going down. So they have this invisible metadata. I just hope she's alive. I just hope that they actually took some of the pills with them. You know, I just hope she's alive, you know. But anyways, they are sending in, so what this is, they're sending in bomb squad though. It's like, so I'm thinking it might be a terrorist group because I'm sure by now they have names, you know, but sending a bomb squad and the SWAT team and the rescue mission, they brought in the elite rescue mission earlier today before this even happened, right? So I think they knew that it was close, but they probably had an idea who they was dealing with. But bomb squad, yeah, that's pretty serious. It says that the suspect didn't have to spend the money to be caught. They just had to receive the alert. So they just kind of shows the the comparison. So I was just asking, just to get the conversation out there, like, why didn't they do this 9 days ago? Well, there's a reason why. They had to collect all this data, right? They had to make sure that that all the stuff that was being sent was basically from the same person. They wanted to get the video footage. They wanted to get more data stuff that they had to go through. And just buying time, basically. And again, if they had paid them, let's say if the family just said, you know what, FBI, we're just going to do what we're going to do, and we're just going to pay these people, because we're just going to have to trust them, but they were asking for proof of life. But they didn't say how should, like, for example, I was like, okay, couldn't they have asked the media to, they could have just said, okay, look, here's what we need you to do. We need you to ask this specific question, like what was her name of her first pet or something like that they couldn't possibly know, right? And then tell the media, and that would be, that would be convincing to us that there's proof of life. But they just said, no, we need proof of life, but they didn't give them any way how to do that. So I just felt like that the FBI was probably trying to really persuade them to, look, don't give them the money, they'll kill her. Right, give us time, just try to work, just try to plead with them and, just buy time or whatever. But here's the thing though, at the same time they're saying that without the medicine she probably wouldn't even survive for 24 hours. So that's why I'm thinking they probably took some of the medicine with them, but they're not going to say that. That's just a lot of details that they're not saying publicly, but they haven't confirmed whether or not they counted the pills. Right, like if they just maybe left the pill bottles there to scare them and pressure them to act more quickly, to think, oh my gosh, she needs this medicine every day, you know what I'm saying? Or did they count the pills and say, okay, well, they took a few with them, you know what I'm saying? Because they had deadlines, so that's information that's not even shared yet. So it's possible that they did go through that, so a lot of people are acting like she's not even alive anymore, but I think that they're acting like there's a possibility that she is, especially with them sending in like the rescue squad. So I'm hoping and praying that she's still alive. I hope and pray she is. But anyways, I skipped arguing with Google Gemini here about this whole plea thing, and anyways, but the FBI handles things the way they did, and sometimes even with the advancements in technology, stuff still takes time, and thankfully, that they were able to get that residual data. That's pretty wild that they were able to do that. but it took them, oh my gosh, 9 days. It says it wasn't a technical impossibility, it was a choice. The family was almost certainly following a rigid FBI script that designed to prevent freestyling. The federal agents prioritized collecting forensic evidence like the Bitcoin trail over opening a dialogue, even if that dialogue could prove the proof of life you're talking about. So while your way might have worked better, zero ambiguity, a specific private question would have instantly separated the real kidnapper from the sea of clout chasers and scammers emailing TMZ. But forcing a hand, if the suspect had wanted that $6 million, they would have been highly motivated to provide that one specific answer regardless of their no contact rule. That's what I kept saying, right? It's like, but it puts the focus back on Nancy rather than just tracking a digital wallet, but why it didn't happen. The playbook over intuition. The FBI tends to treat these cases like a laboratory experiment. They viewed the Bitcoin wallet as a cleaner trap than a messy conversation. They have fear of provocation. Challenging a suspect with a question could make an unstable person react violently, stuff like that. You're not opining nonsense. You're pointing out a massive gap between clinical police tactics and common sense negotiation. The family followed the experts, and as a result, the only conversation that happened was a $300 digital ping. But we have a suspect in custody, and you have bomb squads out on the way, and you have, rescue teams or whatever on the way, and hopefully, she is still alive. But I said, I think that they probably told him she'd have a better chance of survival if they just bought time to get the evidence to catch them than if they paid them, they would have killed her, right? And then said that's a heavy but very realistic theory on how the FBI likely handled this. In many high-stakes kidnappings, the priority shifts from the negotiating release to building a forensic trap, because law enforcement often believes that once a ransom's paid, then you know what the hell happens, right? So the witness elimination fear, they suspected from the start that the perpetrator was an insider or a rookie, as some experts have labeled the suspect in custody. I mean, like you show up you've got all this gear and you did all this planning or whatever, but then you're not even prepared to deal with a camera, that you're picking up flowers out of the ground to try to disable it. I'm just like, it was just, and then you're doing Bitcoin, which is the most easily traceable thing for authorities, and you still under this idea that you can evade authorities with Bitcoin. So that's a rookie. That's somebody that just not hip to the trip, I guess. Anyways, if the kidnapper is someone she knows, they can't let her go without being identified. Agents told the Guthrie family that buying time to find the suspect's physical location was a safer bet than providing millions of dollars that would give the kidnapper the means to flee the country or clean up the crime scene. The ping was the real evidence, guys. So anyways, they allowed them to catch the suspect in a vehicle south of Tucson just hours later in Rio Rico. They refused to confirm the ransom notes were even real for over a week. It wasn't silent, which is just a stalling tactic. Classic FBI, right? So they're vetting the notes and refused to engage the publicly. They forced the suspect to wait. So while the suspect waited, the FBI was busy recovering Nest camera footage and DNA from the porch. Evidence that eventually led to the traffic stop in Rio Rico. So it was a family's impossible choice. Their pleas shifted from "we will pay" to "we need help from the public." This shift happened when the FBI tells the family, "We have a lead on their location. Don't give them money yet, or we might lose our window to find her alive." So you're likely right. They traded the ransom dialogue for evidence gathering because the FBI believed the only way she will survive is the suspect is caught before they feel they've won. So anyways, we shall see very soon if this strategy worked. And I said, but then they go about the medicines, right? Okay, and they talk about, did they count the pills? And I kind of feel like they did, but I'm sure all of it will come out. I'm sure there's probably gonna be a movie about it. I'm sure that I'm sure we'll get all those details later. But sadly, she's 84, and I saw a picture of her arm, and it looked almost black. I thought, oh, I think she's got diabetes really bad. But she definitely has heart, blood pressure, and then diabetes. So here you have this confusion about her daughter. Here's where this came in. So I said, well, didn't they count the pills? to say, well, maybe this was just staged to make by the kidnappers to make it look more clock pressing, you know what I'm saying? And actually maybe took some of the pills with her. Because it doesn't make sense. Why, if they know that this woman has health problems, why wouldn't they take pills with her? Because obviously, if you're actually wanting money, you're going to have to keep your victim alive, right? You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, that information's not out, but when they arrived at her house, they noted that her daily medications were still there with her phone, wallet, and car. So then there was this receipt. So, in a significant development, they searched a vehicle belonging to their other daughter, Annie Guthrie, and they found a receipt for prescription medication and medical supplies. So a lot of people were talking about that, but I'm like, look, she's 84. She doesn't drive. Of course, her daughter took her to get her medicine. So that's probably why, you know what I'm saying? But so there's been no evidence provided by the kidnappers that she has access to her medication or that she's being treated for her health conditions. All they said was that she's okay, but she's scared. That was the only communication they had from them. So Chris Nanos, the sheriff, said that her condition is fragile. Her heart medication is vital for survival. She has pacemaker. So the pacemaker activity was that it monitors her heart and syncs to an app on her iPhone. So the device reportedly last sent a signal around 2 a.m. on Sunday, February 1st, which was shortly before her doorbell camera was disconnected. Okay. So it makes you think that they may have used a jammer. They may have used a Wi-Fi jammer. Possibly. Because if her iPhone is using Wi-Fi or whatever, I mean, I don't know. Why would it disconnect before they disconnect the doorbell? Because the doorbell camera was messed with when they was on the porch. But I don't know. There'll be more details about that later. And then she can't even walk 50 yards by herself, right? So anyways, she's there was a 85-year-old hostage who survived 2 weeks in 2023 despite listen, I didn't know about this. An 85-year-old was taken hostage in 2023. I don't remember that. And needed 17 medications. Wow. Medical experts warn that abruptly starting heart medication significantly increases the risk of stroke or emergency. So the authorities said that these health concerns, they used it to plead with abductors to do the right thing, return her home before a condition becomes fatal. And so, anyways, I said, look, Annie, her daughter, took her mother to get her medicine because she doesn't drive. And it said that theory aligns with one of the most debated pieces of evidence in the case, the receipt for medication found in her search of Annie Guthrie's vehicle. They have put their daughter and their son-in-law through so much garbage, pointing fingers at him. It's just absolutely ridiculous. There was no reason whatsoever to target those people. It's a very loving, close-knit family. There's no scandal. There's no anything wrong with that family. And they just targeted her daughter and her son-in-law for no reason. Horrible to do that to these victims going through this horrible thing. I mean, and then tried to act like there was no abduction. I mean, it was just ridiculous. You know, just because her daughter takes her mother to the pharmacy, the receipt was in her car. Ooh, I'm just, people's crazy. And I'm just like, oh my word. But anyways, it says your instinct about the medication being picked up that day matches several key reports, though the who and why are still being pieced together. Now, to be fair, though, here's the thing that's been happening. They've been going to Annie's house, and they've been going to, the family's house, okay, and they did leave her home with something like in a bag, and that doesn't mean that they had done anything wrong. So every time they go back to Annie's house, they're communicating and they're finding evidence. And when they found the video evidence of the guy, of course they went to Annie's house because they had to verify, do you know this person? You know what I'm saying? Like, they just wanted to talk to him. What was they supposed to do? Ask Annie and her, to come to the police station? Because either way, they're going to talk about it like there's something wrong. But they have officially confirmed that no one in the family is involved. And that the person that was arrested and the people that they suspect is not family. So they have definitely confirmed that already, right? So they're suggesting that the medication on the receipt was in Annie's own name, while others point to it as evidence that she was helping her mother. So Annie and her husband were last known people to see Nancy. They dropped her off at her home at 9:48, and so if they stopped for prescriptions earlier that day, it would explain why a fresh receipt was in the car. Duh. So did she take her medicine with her? So the official evidence from the crime scenes suggests the answer is no. But again, nobody's talking about whether or not they counted the pills, right? So they confirmed her daily medication was still in her home when she was reported missing. So the problem is, even if she picked up new refills for her, the pills Nancy needed for that night and the next morning were still sitting on her counter or in her bathroom. And it said that her heart condition could be fatal if she goes 24 hours without her medicine. So you've got these days going by and they're still acting like she's alive. So that's why I'm thinking, okay, they may have took some pills with them, right? So the missing count. They've not publicly stated if they counted her pills to see if any were missing from her bottles, but they have emphasized that she did not have her hearing aid, her phone, or her wallet. So it says suggested she was taken in a hurry and did not have a chance to grab her essential medical supplies. So this Bitcoin activity and the suspect now in custody are the biggest leads that we have. The reports of Annie's name, some social media reports, of course people out there talking about everything. I only go by what the authorities are saying. It's like earlier today, as soon as there was a video released by Kash Patel of the FBI, then how it came all over the internet, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just fake videos about people inside their house. I mean, just randomly puts fake stuff out there just for clicks and views. It's like, oh my word, and anyways, using AI to create stuff and all this other stuff, So the receipt, so there was some medical bandages also, and another unnamed item that we don't know yet, led to someone to just speculate. But the Pima County said that not only that she's not officially named and is a suspect, they have clarified now that is the people involved are not the family. So there's that. Anywho's, so this is what I said, but it's possible they left the bottles to put pressure on the family to pay quickly, but they took some pills with them, just left the bottles. So it says this is a chillingly logical theory, and it's exact kind of psychological warfare that some kidnappers use. They leave the bottles behind. It creates a visual death clock for the family and the police, saying, look, the clock's ticking, and only we have what she needs to live. So if the suspect is structured and layered, as Harvey Levin described the ransom note, again, the ransom note at the media, TMZ, Harvey Levin and TMZ, they would know that empty house with no meds is a much more powerful motivator than a house where the meds are missing, right? So why the counting pills is crucial. If the FBI is thorough as they claim, this is what Google is saying, would have done exactly what you suggested. The pharmacy records. Investigators would call Nancy's pharmacy to see the exact date her last 30-day or 90-day supply was filled, right? So if the bottle was filled 10 days ago, then she should have 20 pills left. But if it only has 15, then we know the suspect took a 5-day supply. And I think that's what the ransom deadline was. I think it was 5 days. So the pocketing scenario, as you pointed out, the suspect would need to take the bulky labeled bottles. They can simply dump a handful of pills in a plastic bag or a pocket. But right now, as we speak, they're searching the house of the person that they arrested. So we'll find out if they... Oh, and they sent the bomb squad. Now, technically, they didn't say where the bomb squad was going, but, I'm connecting the dots just so I clarify that. They, the Sheriff Department and the FBI, did not say where the bomb squad is going. It just happened to be going out right when the subpoena was going on at the person's house who's been arrested. The DoorDash driver, whose mother-in-law insists that he's not in any way involved. Okay, so, right. So the suspect was detained in a gray SUV on February 10th. The first thing the FBI is doing is a search incident to arrest. And that's what they're doing now. So they're not just looking for her, they're looking for other stuff, loose pills, pharmacy bags, medical supplies, things that shouldn't be in that vehicle. So if the suspect was smart enough to use Bitcoin, actually dumb enough to use Bitcoin, and send no reply emails to TMZ, they were definitely smart enough to realize that Nancy's only a valuable asset as long as she's alive. That's what I was hoping, right? So taking the pills but leaving the bottles is a way to keep her alive, but also keep pressure on the Guthries. So in the Nancy Guthrie case, reports from TMZ said that the individual detained is not a member of the Guthrie family. And now I remember reading the Pima County Sheriff Department's, I'm pretty sure that they also confirmed, if you go to their Twitter account, that it was not a family member. So family members of the detained man, not a woman, it's a man, told them that he was delivering DoorDash when he was intercepted by deputies. Federal and local authorities executed a search warrant at the residence in Rio Rico associated with this person. The man's mother-in-law publicly insisted he has nothing to do with that. So if she's out there publicly insisting things, then probably somewhere out there we know who the person is, right? Because if the mother-in-law's out there, then I'm pretty sure the word's out. But it's not in the media. They're not, like, the authorities aren't releasing the name, but I'm sure the names probably are out there by now. So anyways, despite this detainment of an outside party, the theory of the insider knowledge remains a major part of the investigation. So there's Nest footage. They have new video about the masked man who seems to know exactly how to well, whatever. He didn't even know how to deal with the camera. That's silly for even Gemini to say that. But anyways, the law enforcement is currently forensically testing electronic devices. They collect a bunch of stuff today when they went door to door. They ran around asking people if they could, look at their footage or take possession of their cameras if they don't have a subscription, because a lot of times you don't have subscriptions, then depending on the camera it will only hold recordings within like 3 days, and then it overwrites it. But they can basically seize that and freeze that timeline, working with the companies of the camera, and they can go in and they can get residual data that you can't like see, that maybe wasn't like recorded, that's like in a chip within the camera. That's what they said. Anyways, so I don't know Arizona. Like, I've been to Phoenix, right, but I don't know Arizona. But Rio Rico and Tucson are much closer than the Mexico border label might suggest. It's about 60 miles south of Tucson, which is about an 1 hour drive via Interstate 19. So the distance is considered close, especially for a delivery driver or someone operating in southern Arizona. So I, like other people, thought that the person was like far away from, but actually it's not. If they're door dashing, it's really not that far according to this. So someone working as a DoorDash driver, a 1 hour trip between Rio Rico and Tucson is, I guess, a common route. I don't know that much about DoorDash driving, but anyways, the man, he was pulled over in Rio Rico after they trailed him from the Tucson area. So she lived in the Catalina foothills north of Tucson, so he would have to drive basically 65-70 miles from Rio Rico to reach her home. So the border contacts, it's only about 12 to 16 miles from the border, so their interest in the specific location may be less about where he works and more about where he was attempting to flee across the border, with or without Nancy. So anyways, they've swarmed this residence because they believe the digital trail, the Bitcoin ping, or the vehicle surveillance matching the gray SUV led them directly to that house, even if he lived an hour away. So the car and the digital activity tied him to the crime in the Catalina foothills. So that's it, guys. This is what they're doing here. I'm going to go ahead and... This is the Pima County Sheriff Department.
Post all return.
Whoops, didn't I not turn that off? No?
CSD says that they have...
Why did they turn that? Anyways, so earlier, I think it was I'm pretty sure it was Fox News, talked about the elite. This is where where'd it go? Wait a minute, did they just drop something new? Oh, this is 13 minutes ago. So Josephina Maddox came and spoke to the press right before 10, saying it was her home that was searched. She says her son, okay, so now we have a name. Josephina Maddox is the mother-in-law. She's saying her son-in-law, a man named Carlos, was the person being detained. She says this came as he and her daughter were doing DoorDash deliveries. Well, we got a first name. We got the mother-in-law's name, Josephina Maddox. Maddox. I don't know how you say that name. Santa Cruz Sheriff's deputies blocking the street at Camino Augusto off the I-19 frontage road about half a mile from the Rio Rico High School. This comes after the deputies detained a subject during a traffic stop. So this was a little bit ago. And yeah, so okay. Homeowner Rio Rico is speaking out after she conducts. Okay, so this is the mother-in-law right here. This is her. She probably, she may not have a clue. But I'm sorry. They pinged him because of the Bitcoin. Like, it's over. Right? So the homeowner in Rio Rico was speaking out after she said authorities conducted a search of their home in connection to the disappearance of Nancy. Oh my gosh. You better hope you had no clue, lady. Shoot. Taking an 84-year-old lady. No, they got him, guys. They got him. Yeah. So they sent in the bomb squad, though. I just hope they find her. Oh my goodness. Please, Lord Jesus, let them find her alive. So this was like happened a little while ago. It says that they can expect lane closures along Mission Road as maintenance work is set to begin soon. I wonder if it's like hasn't anything to do with this. And they just didn't. The media has been such a nuisance. Let me tell you how bad it was. The Pima County Sheriff Department, I'm going to go to their account. Pima County Sheriff Department had to tell the media, don't use the address of the victim's house to deliver food. This is how crazy it is. Oh my gosh. Look. It says, look, we can't believe that we have to say this, but media on scene. Please do not order food delivery to a crime scene address. This interferes with an active investigation. Please also respect private property laws. Thank you. Like, who does that? Who uses the victim's house as an address to send your pizza to? Like, these people are off the hook. Just off the hook. I mean, you could use anybody's address on the street. You could just say, the block where all the media is, come bring us our food, But you use the victim's house's address to deliver your food. It's insanity. But anyways, that's... Oh my goodness. Crazy stuff. Oh, please, people, just... Please keep praying, right? Please keep praying, because I just hope that she's alive. Oh my goodness. Trying to find what page I was on. Nope. Anyways, but there's that, guys. And I'm gonna get off here and I'm gonna go to bed. And so yeah, that's how they got them. And a lot of people are, I don't know. I just wish they would just lay off the family, because I mean, just ridiculous pictures I've seen today. I've looked at so many pictures of people that they're trying to identify the son-in-law as somebody who is in the camera. And the guy has super, super thick eyebrows. Like, not only thick, like in, like, like an inch, like wide or whatever in depth, but full, like in very dense hair. And the person in the camera obviously had thin-haired eyebrows. And it's just like, they just over and over tried, for no reason. Like, there was no excuse to just destroy this family. And what really annoyed me, really got me on this tangent on covering this case, was people like Nancy Grace, people just like trying to badmouth the family. And I'm just like, excuse me, hello, I did a little bitty search and I was able to discern that there was some facts out there that you guys aren't happening to mention. One, that neighbors reported early on, very early on, that they saw suspicious people around the house days before her abduction. There was a white van that had no, like, company labels on it. And that got people to thinking, oh my gosh, there probably was somebody that serviced the house in some way. So Laura Coates, I forget what media she was from, and she noticed from the aerial footage that the top of her roof in that particular state wasn't like gable roofs, they're like flat roofs with like little edges around them, territory or whatever. So they had noticed that looked pretty pristine, so maybe it had been coated recently, maybe somebody had worked on it. So they have these guys, the authorities, up on the roof, and they're like, why are they on the roof? And I'm like, probably because they're looking for some kind of DNA or some kind of something that they may, if there was people that worked on the roof, stuff like that. And so, but like Nancy Grace and these people start just bad mouthing the daughter and the son-in-law. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And they knew that different neighbors had reported seeing, they saw a man who was heavy with a man who was tall and thin lingering around the property. They saw another man who was like standing near the porch. They actually saw, here's another thing, they actually saw 2 footprints, not 1, 2 footprints. And so these details were out there. So it's like one thing if they want to keep these details close to their heart because there's an active investigation. But it's another thing for the media to know these details but not widely disperse them while you're out here also accusing the family for no particular reason. And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, I will walk out of a live stream if they even mention Nancy Grace. I'm like, bye. See, you don't want to be you, right? Don't even get me going there, right? So let's talk about the footprints. Okay, so they found 2 sets of footprints. Okay, it says no footprints or tire tracks were found around her home during the initial crime scene processing. But the sheriff confirmed that while investigators gathered all the evidence they could, including DNA and fingerprints, they did not find any footprints that yielded clues. There have been viral social media posts claiming a trail of deep women's footprints. I hadn't heard about that on the back near the house. They've not been verified. Criminologists noted the lack of footprints and tire tracks suggests a sophisticated, well-planned abduction rather than a chaotic struggle in dirt or vegetation surrounding the home. But while footprints were absent, other high-priority pieces of evidence were confirmed. Blood evidence, surveillance tampering, blah, 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 pacemaker. Okay, no, there was notice, one neighbor saw 2 men days before she was taken. Like, there was a heavy set and tall, thin, and then there was somebody else. There was actually one of the neighbors who went public, and then there was a van. So the specific description has circulated online. True crime discussions, visual reports from so they've centered on different neighbor sightings and physical evidence. The van that I was talking about earlier. So the unmarked white van, multiple neighbors, including Brett McIntyre, one of them went public, reported a suspicious full-size white van with no markings parked on the street in the days leading up to the disappearance. And then there was a tall man sighting. Some neighbors reported seeing a tall, unfamiliar man lingering near her door 30 minutes before authorities were first called. The official 2 men theory, the idea of 2 men working together, one heavyset, one tall, stems from independent reports and neighborhood rumors rather than official police statements. It doesn't matter. It was still out there, and the media knew that. So why didn't the media discuss this while they're out there bashing the family and acting like there's no actual abduction and these family members are involved and you should have them all take polygraphs, and on they went, right? So the worker assumption, witnesses reportedly told outlets like the U.S. Sun that they saw 2 men loitering for days but assumed they were part of Nancy's staff. Now, see, that's what I heard. That's what I read. Or home maintenance crew. So the official efforts are currently focused on the masked individual, obviously because he's on the camera and he's looking so sus, right? But these are still people that are staking out the property, maybe observing the schedule or whatever. It was, it was planned out. So this man in the gray SUV in Rio Rico is the first major physical lead. But my point was to ask these questions is because, look, this is February 5th that people were talking about this. And then in this other one on February 6th. So you have these independent, you know, and people out there. Even one of the neighbors even went out there and openly spoke about seeing suspicious people. So why is, if all this information has been out there since early on, you got people like Nancy Grace and, you know, certain media they were just like profiteering off of the nonsense and just really making victims of the victims, you know. And that's why I got mad. That's why I got fired up today about this case, you know, that's been ongoing, because I just got so fed up. And, you know, YouTube is just so filthy bad about putting stuff in my feed to irritate me, you know, they just constantly make so much money off of fake news. And just, I'm like, look, I have only clicked on videos that I like. You know, YouTube knows the things that I like. They, you know, and I don't know how many times I have to click, do not show me this channel, do not show me this channel, do not show me this channel, do not show me this channel. How many times do I have to tell you, I am not interested in this? And yet they just flood our feeds with this nonsense, you know. And so I just fed up. And so I'm just like, look, so then I'm going on there and I'm defending the family today, because I'm like, look, first of all, you've got people stalking this property and been stalking this property. This is a celebrity woman who just happens to be a Christian conservative, okay? She's targeted. This whole network was targeted. Like, that lady that was kidnapped wasn't just the mother of a celebrity, one of the very few Christian conservatives. In the same year that Charlie Kirk was murdered, and though I don't agree with a lot of things Charlie Kirk did, he was still a Christian conservative, you know, and just cruelly assassinated. And, you know, so I feel like this was a network that was targeted, and she was targeted. And so now we're going to find out in a short period of time exactly who targeted these people. But they were targeting the entire family. These media people and YouTube were targeting the family to just basically slaughter them, and they will probably never be able to be outside suspicion, regardless of how many arrests and how many convictions they get of the people who actually did this. They're always going to try to spin nonsense on the family for no reason whatsoever. No reason whatsoever. The family did zero, zilch, nada, nothing. There's no scandal in their family. There's no reason to attack the family like they did today. And so I spent my day going on these places and just like these ridiculous trying to accuse the brother-in-law, and I'm just like, look at the eyebrows, they're like 3 inches thick, and this guy is very, you know, I'm just like, that's why I'm fired up about this case. And I'm just so happy. I can go to bed very happy that they got the guy. I've been praying all day. I'm like, Lord, Adam, get him, you know, people. And it's so bad. Let me tell you how bad it is. That just for people asking for prayer for this family on YouTube, like you'll have a video of the Today Show and they were talking about, you know, just, you know, they'd plead with them, whatever. So you have a lot of people in the comments who's praying for the family, and people just trolling them, just saying, just for asking for prayer for them. They just want to hate this family so bad. It's not bad enough they took this woman, who may not even be alive, she may or may not be alive, terrorized this family, right? This beautiful 84-year-old woman with serious medical problems, to do this horrible thing to them. Then you're going to slaughter and attack the family. People like Nancy Grace just gross me out. Okay? And then as soon as the pictures are out that it was an actual abductor, and look, here's the evidence now from the video of the residual data that they got, then she's like, oh, look, breaking news. I mean, oh my gosh, I can't with her, right? And so I just want people to see that, look, there's probably going to be some kind of political terrorist network. You know, what they did was terrorist. It was absolutely terroristic, you know, and trying to use Bitcoin. I'm so thankful. Like, in one sense, it's like, wow, they're able to even see if somebody even checks their wallet. A lot of people would think that that is just like Big Brother scary stuff, but I'm just like, in this kind of situation, I am so thankful that they had the technology to be able to even see. And I'm glad that these people were too dumb to know the technology that our intelligence agencies have, that all they had to do was just look and check their wallet, and that set the trap that they got caught. So, you know, and I do I do feel very confident. I know everybody's innocent until proven guilty, right? Right? So they're not wanting to release the more information they want. But I do believe that look, it's connected to the Bitcoin, so they're caught. It's over. I just hope they get them all. I hope they get every single one of them, right? And I hope for more than anything that they get Nancy back. And I hope that she's alive, and I hope she survives. But if not, y'all just keep them in prayer. And on that note, I'm going to leave, guys. And thank you for stopping in, and I hope y'all have a blessed day. Bye.